I started, like I said, exercising, and I started small. I really didn't worry about nutrition in the beginning because that was my big question mark for so long was nutrition. I didn't, I just thought I needed to cut out foods, cut out the amount of times that I was eating per day. I thought, let me skip breakfast, let me eat a really tiny lunch, I'll eat a regular dinner with my family, and then hopefully I'll start to lose weight. What ended up happening was I was starving at the end of like every single day, right? And so I would
Yes.
end up eating way more towards the end of the day, and then my body didn't have anything to do with that. I'd go to sleep with all this food in my tummy. I should have been doing it the opposite, but I didn't know that at the time.
You're listening to The Next Bite, a food and fitness podcast hosted by yours truly, Danny Phillips. For nearly a decade, I've helped hundreds of women conquer their struggles around food and exercise. With a little bit of science,
creamy, salty, sweet, and oaky nuttiness. You detect that?
and humor,
Oh, I'm detecting nuttiness.
Close your eyes.
I'm here to break down nutrition one bite at a time so that you can take one more daily struggle off your plate. Now, I know you're short on time, so in each episode, I'll help you navigate conflicting diet trends,
Everybody says flavor's so important, and it is, but texture matters more.
confusing food labels,
No! Spit that out right now!
and crazy health claims that bombard your brain daily.
MSG, the king of flavor.
I'm gonna nerd out about the research so that you don't have to, and I'll be able to guide you in deciphering what's optimal versus what's your best option that's available to you in that moment.
Jonesing for a cupcake, and I was having a mild pregnancy tantrum that I could not get a cupcake, even though I owned a cupcake shop.
If you're wondering why the world is constantly talking about protein and macros,
Give me all the bacon and eggs you have.
or just trying to answer the never-ending question, what's for dinner,
Started making it, had a breakdown. Bon appetit.
you're in the right place. Are you ready? Let's go find your next bite. All right, Laura, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on The Next Bite. How you doing?
Hi, I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here.
Perfect. Well, I know we've been chatting already, and just for our audience, I guess they should know a little background. We met a couple months ago at a workshop, which is super fun. And I love how you were like, oh my God, she's moving to Florida. We have to be friends. We have to talk and meet. And it was like this perfect instant connection of like nutrition coach, health coach. And I feel like we're business besties now, and I love it.
I know. Yeah, no, we were going around. Everybody was doing their introduction, and I was like, I've got to talk to that girl.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect. So I feel like we connected the rest of the day, and we've been chatting ever since. And it's been such a joy to start to create more like collaborative experiences between people in the health and fitness industry. And so I'm excited to, we've talked a few times since then, and we both have podcasts. So we've been listening to each other's and kind of going, all right, what's their area of expertise and how do we want to share that with our own audiences? So I'm excited today to bring your area of expertise to my podcast because it's different than mine. And I think we all bring something different to the table. So you're a health coach, and I feel like from what I've heard, you have made some big shifts in your life, which is what made you want to become a health coach. So I want to start with that and your journey of what shifts you started making in your life and how that brought you to becoming a health coach. So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I would love to share that. And you mentioned collaboration. Being on a health journey can feel so lonely at times. So I'm excited and building a business can also feel really lonely. It's like going against the grain. You're doing something that people in your life haven't done before. Like nobody really knows how to navigate it until they're in it. And it can feel really lonely at times. So like you, I'm excited to be collaborating with you and also offering those experiences for the people who are in our spaces. I started my health journey officially in 2020 whenever COVID kind of shut everything down. I had a lot more time on my hands, and so I woke up one day and I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to start working out this time. Like I'm going to actually do this because I had spent so many years saying oh, I really should lose weight, or looking in the mirror and saying mean things to myself, or, being upset with the number on the scale, but not really ever being committed to doing anything to change it. I was just like,
Hmm.
I hated it, but I really didn't know how to change it. That was ultimately the problem looking back, is I didn't really know what it meant to actually be healthy. I didn't come from a healthy family. I didn't come from a family who understood what it meant to be healthy in any way. And so to start a health journey meant to start an education journey, meant to start me learning about what does this actually mean. And thankfully I had the time at the time to learn those things, right? So I started listening to podcasts, I started watching YouTube videos, I started doing whatever I could to learn more about what does it actually mean to be healthy. And it took time. So
Oh, sure.
like I said, I started in 2020. I always say I started in March of 2020, but I was looking back at the beginning. I was recording myself while doing my workouts. Like I would just like go out onto my parents' carport, and I would set my phone up and watch a YouTube video and just record myself doing the workouts. And I did it literally every single day. And then I posted them to my Instagram story. And that was my way in the beginning of keeping myself accountable. I had to find
Love it.
something. Like we need some way to keep, whether that's joining a group and getting a coach, or I like to talk about consistency calendars and different like techniques to keep yourself accountable. Whatever it is, whatever works for you. For me, it was recording myself and posting it on my Instagram stories. And so I was doing that, but I looked the other day and I didn't actually do my first one until May of 2020. So we'll
It's an end.
add a little thing in there. It actually didn't start until 2 months after I thought it started. But I started, like I said, exercising, and I started small. I really didn't worry about nutrition in the beginning, because that was my big question mark for so long, was nutrition. I just thought I needed to cut out foods, cut out the amount of times that I was eating per day. I thought, let me skip breakfast, let me eat a really tiny lunch, I'll eat a regular dinner with my family, and then hopefully I'll start to lose weight. What ended up happening was I was starving at the end of like every single day, right? And so I would
Yes.
end up eating way more towards the end of the day, and then my body didn't have anything to do with that. I'd go to sleep with all this food in my tummy. I should have been doing it the opposite, but I didn't know that at the time. So it really did. It took a lot of time. And yeah, over time, like I said, I started to learn more about nutrition. I started to develop what I call my one whole method for building balanced meals. I actually have a freebie. I will give you the link to it so that people can
Love
download
it.
it.
I was hoping.
Yeah, it really helps with like portion sizes. And it just like the freebie also has a meal plan, and the recipes to go along with the meal plan as well. So I'll give you that so that you can have that for any of the
Perfect.
listeners who want to download that. But I started following that. I started, like I said, I really got very consistent with exercise, started focusing on drinking more water, and I started to lose weight for truly the first time. And what the big takeaway for me was, and is a key piece of my coaching, is it really comes down to taking it slow and building the habits. Because if I would have, somebody said to me the other day, one of my clients, she was talking to me about, I just wish that it would happen faster. And I said, well, if you woke up tomorrow and you had the perfect body that you'd been dreaming of, would you know how to maintain that? Would you know how to keep that perfect body? And she was like, well, no. And I said, exactly. We don't want to wake up tomorrow in our dream body. We want to take the steps to build our dream body so that we can keep it forever, so that you don't have to be on a diet for the rest of your life. So
It's a
yeah,
brilliant perspective shift. I love it. And that's so much of what the coaching piece is like you've been through a journey so you can see, hindsight 2020, and you can share that perspective that isn't there when you're like, I just need a change to happen.
exactly. Right. Well, I think we get so caught up in, I just want to be there. I just want to be towards the end, right? Like it's like the kids, are we there yet? Are we there yet? You're going to ask yourself that a million times, and let me tell you, you're going to get to where you thought you wanted to be, and then there's going to be more learning that you're going to want to do. There's going to be more, and you're going to fall in love with it, because you're going to start feeling so good that you're going to want to learn more. You're going to want to keep doing it. And so that's really, it's all about the journey. I'm sure you've heard the phrase before, it's not in the destination, it's in the journey. It really,
Mhm.
really is. That's where all of the magic happens, is when we can fall in love with the journey, because the destination, really, you probably won't ever get to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And it's funny because one of the first questions I always ask in the workshops that I do is I ask, what food do people not like? And I want to like identify that because so many people get stuck on like, I have to do this particular diet or I have to eat this one thing and that's going to be the one thing that changes it all. And I'm like, no, 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 you can't do the things that you like. If you don't like the approach, if you don't like the food, you can't stick with it. And that long-term sustainability and that enjoyment of the journey is so huge.
No, absolutely. I talk about that all the time too, of you have to enjoy it. If you're eating foods that you hate, if you're exercising in a way that you hate, you're not going to stick with it. It has to be something that you enjoy. So 100% agree. And you have to be willing to stick with it. It's not an easy journey, especially if you're on a weight loss journey. It's not
Hmm.
easy. It takes
No, it's not.
dedication. It really does. You have to be willing to love yourself through it and show up for yourself. And I talk about this a lot, because you love yourself, not because you hate yourself. We're not going to
Yes.
hate ourselves into change, right? I don't want to
Hmm.
do this because I hate the person in the mirror. I want to do this because I love the person in the mirror. I love her enough to change the way that she looks, right?
Yes, yes. You said something before about, well, we were talking about perspective shift. I would love for you to share a little bit of maybe the timeline and what you actually achieved in that timeline, because I think, again, people want immediate change. And I get it. There's a lot of things I want immediate change for too. But a question I get a lot is like, can you just tell me what to eat? Like, can I just lose like 10 pounds really quickly? And then, what can I do drastically? But what does that really look like? If you started, in March with looking at or watching YouTube videos and listening to podcasts, but then the action, the physical action started in May, like what did that timeline truly look like for you? How long does a genuine, long-term sustainable journey actually look like to achieve goals?
That's such a good question and such a thing to point out. I look at people online, like, the influencers and whoever else sharing their journey and story, and nobody ever talks about this of how long did it take. And sometimes I wonder, well, how long did it take you to get from where you are to where you were before? And for me, it definitely it took a long time. I would say that it took me about 2 years to lose my weight, and then I've been maintaining it ever since then. But I think that it took that long because I didn't know so much in the beginning, and because I was teaching myself. Like if
Fair.
you are joining a program or something like that, I think it would speed that up because somebody is taking their brain and putting it into your brain. And so
Oh
that does
yeah.
speed it up. I didn't have anything like that. I was just like learning along the way through books and podcasts and YouTube videos. So
Hmm.
it definitely took me time. And I also think that it took me time because I had such an unhealthy relationship with myself and with food that there were definitely mountains and valleys for sure. I was really good with the exercise, and that stayed pretty consistent the whole time. But I lost about half the weight that I ended up losing, and then I got to the point where I was binge eating like every single day. Like it was getting it was a really hard time because I was teaching third grade at the time, and school would end. I had skipped breakfast that day. Here was a day in my life about halfway through my health journey, right? Is I would wake up in the mornings and I would in my head be like, Laura, you are gonna be good today. You are not gonna eat any candy. You're not gonna eat like a lot of food at all. Like you're gonna be so good today. And so then I would skip breakfast because I'm being good today. And then I would go and I would have like such a tiny lunch. I remember one of my go-tos was like buffalo chicken dip. And I would just eat like this little bitty container of buffalo chicken dip, right?
Oh,
Thinking that that was
girl.
enough food.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had been losing weight, so clearly something was working, right? Like, and then
Story time.
The bell would ring. I would be left alone in my classroom and I would look over at the kids' candy jar that's meant for them if they're like doing something good or something, and then I would just start eating. I would start eating and there might be 5 Hershey Kisses in the thing and I would eat 3 of them and they'd be like, well, I can't leave 2 of them. I've got to finish them. And so then I'd eat the other 2. And then it would be like, well, I'm not satisfied. And through that experience is where I learned I have a really unhealthy relationship with food, and I need to do a lot more learning about how sugar impacts my body because I was having such intense cravings. And I learned a lot about blood sugar through that. I learned a lot about how to manage my cravings, emotional cravings, physical cravings. I started classifying my cravings into two categories. I learned a lot about that through having that really rough experience, and then through healing my relationship with food. Like I said, that was probably about a year after I started my true health journey. Through healing my relationship with food is where I really built the habits that allowed me to lose the rest of my weight and then sustain it long term.
Wow. Wow. And I've seen your Instagram. And so I love that you're sharing those personal stories because so many people can't relate to only seeing the end result. They want to see that you've been through a journey too, or you've helped somebody through that journey. So I just want to thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that journey and put it out there on the internet for anybody to see, because I think that's how you've reached a lot of people and they've recognized oh my God, I'm going through the same exact thing. And if she did it, I can do it too. So thank you for being able to be vulnerable enough to do that.
Yeah, and it's just what I wish that I had seen whenever I was early in my journey. I wish that I had seen people talking about the hard times. I think we
Yeah.
just on social media, we're just seeing, like you said, the end result, the good times, the hey, I made it, but we're not seeing the what did it take to get there. And I want to share that because that lets people know they're not alone. You're not alone. And if you were struggling with your weight, with an unhealthy relationship with food, with binge eating, if you're struggling with those things, it's actually so common, but it's not normal and it doesn't have to be your life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's something I talk about a lot too, is I think our society, Western culture has become this move more, eat less. And that just doesn't work anymore. It may have worked 30, 40, 50 years ago when we didn't have all the technology that we have and we weren't glued to TVs and cell phones. As a whole, our society just doesn't move as much as it could or as it did. And so simply eating less, or you said okay, I'm not going to eat breakfast, I'm going to have a small lunch, and that's deemed being good. I think we need to flip the script on that. And we've got to recognize that our bodies aren't going to survive unless we bring calories and energy into it. And just a little bit more coming in can give us a lot more energy output. So I love that you're preaching that as well, because I think it makes the biggest difference. But it's just hit home on the opposite end in the wrong way. And so we've got to bring the pendulum back the other side.
No, you're exactly right. I think there's so much to be noted there, and a huge way to heal if you are somebody who feels like you do have maybe a negative relationship with food, a huge way to stop having to heal that relationship is to stop referring to it as good and bad. We say, "Oh, I ate a salad today. I was good today." No, you eating a salad doesn't make you a good person. Or, oh my God, I ate a brownie today. I was so bad today. You're not bad because you ate a brownie, right?
Right.
There are reasons why we're good people and reasons why we're bad people, and the food we eat is not the reason why, right? And so we have
Correct.
to stop referring to food we eat and ourselves as good or bad if we want to have truly a healthy relationship with food for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. You talked a lot about healing a relationship with food. Um, I guess, what was the catalyst for that piece of it? And what does that look like? How can someone listen and go, oh, I need to heal my relationship with food, and where do they start?
I think so. If we are saying, how do you know you have an unhealthy relationship with food? Are you demonizing yourself for the choices that you're making? You're saying, you're talking good and bad. I was good and bad. You're beating yourself up over the food that you're eating. Maybe you have a lot of food noise. So there's constant talk in your head of food. Go eat the
Mm,
Oreo, the Oreo, the Oreo, the Oreo. It's like you're constantly thinking about the food in your pantry or what's in your lunchbox or what can you have whenever you get home today. If you're doing that, or if you are coming home from work and you're just heading straight to the pantry and stuffing food in your throat, unhealthy relationship with food. It's a lot of the mindset behind why are you eating? Are you eating because this is food for your body and you're like trying to give yourself energy, or are you eating because you're punishing yourself for something that you did earlier, or you're rewarding yourself for something that you did earlier? Those are reasons why we might have an unhealthy relationship with, or reason ways to know you have an unhealthy relationship with food. And why you have one, a lot, it's from society, it's from our upbringing. Think back to the way that your family talked about food in the past. Like, how did, your mom, did she eat something and then say she was good or bad because of it? Or like, did you eat something and then say, oh my God, I'm so fat? Like, if you use that language, it's a lot in our language and our mindset behind food. And typically it comes from our upbringing and things we saw around us as children, and what we see on social media around us right now, and the way that other people around us speak about food as well is really the reason why that happens. For me, like I said, I was binge eating every single after, like, it was getting really out of hand. It was an everyday thing. I was eating to the point of physically getting sick in the afternoons, and then I wasn't able to come home and do my workout that I was saying that I was going to do. So it was really deeply affecting my life, and it was getting to the point where it was like unavoidable to face. Like, I had to face this. And my husband's the reason why I ended up facing it. He was like, Laura, this is not a normal way to treat yourself. Like, you coming home sick every day is not normal. We need to do something about this. And for me, what made the biggest difference, like I said before, was education. My primary program that I teach is Seismic Shift. And in that program, I combine education with mindset shifts to give you sustainable, healthy, lasting change. And those two things are the things that made the biggest difference for me. I started educating myself on how does sugar impact my body? Why, whenever I eat this candy in the afternoons, does it then feel like I crave even more of it? And I started learning so much about that. That's, like I said, where I created the two categories of cravings. Some are physical cravings, some are emotional cravings. And through that education, my mindset around it began to change, and I stopped beating myself up over it, because I realized sometimes my actions, what I'm doing, is creating this. And so that was really what it was. First the education, and then the mindset shifts that ultimately led to me healing my relationship with food.
Love it. So when you talk about education, like, did you take a course? Did you take a class? Like, did you have a mentor? Was it just podcasts and really kind of self-taught through podcasts and audiobooks and that kind of thing? What did that look like?
Most of my journey was self-taught. Up until the time whenever I decided I want to make a career out of this, and then that's whenever I went to school for health coaching. But up until that point, my entire transformation personally was self-taught. I followed people on Instagram. Most of what I learned about blood sugar management was from the Glucose Goddess on Instagram. I learned from her Instagram, and then I also bought her books and listened to podcasts that she was on, and learned a lot from her through that. That made a huge difference for me. Yeah, but self-taught, I just knew I want to know this stuff. I was dedicated to it. I really wanted to make the change.
Yeah, so cool. I love it. I'm a huge proponent of education as well. And that's, I'm sure you do too, but I get clients that will say, can you just give me a meal plan? I just want to follow something. I don't want to think about it. I'm like, I will give you a meal plan. However, it's going to come with education. I'm going to put the macronutrients on there. We're going to talk about it. Like, you following a meal plan is not going to fix this long term. And truly, I'm not the biggest fan of meal plans, because it's inevitable. You're going to be 2 days in, and I'm going to get a text that says, hey, I'm going out to eat tonight. How can I swap this meal? Or, hey, I had a party this weekend. I didn't follow the meal plan. What should I do? And so it's like, if there's no education, you don't know how to tweak and change that template that you might want. And they can be wonderful. I had a meal plan for several months, probably 6 or 7 months when I first started bodybuilding. And it can be effective if you commit to following it. But most of our lifestyles are just sun up to sundown busy and don't always allow for the rigidity of following the structured meal plan.
Absolutely. I say that there's two pieces to education. There's what you need to be doing and why you need to be doing it. And if you don't understand that why, you're not going to be consistent with it. That's why I tell people all the time, I don't want you to do this because Laura said to do it. I want you to do it because you know the reason behind it and how it benefits your health overall. And so you're right. Giving people what they need is great. In theory. But then
Theory.
life happens, and we need to understand what we need to be doing and why we need to be doing it in order for it to truly last.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so you get this desire to take what you've learned in your own journey and then become a health coach. So, what program did you go through? Like, how, or did you have like clients and friends and family going, "Oh my God, like we see your transformation. Can you teach me? Can you coach me?" Like, how did that transition into going, "I'm going to become a health coach" happen?
Let's see. I have been, like I said, sharing my workouts, and I was just following videos. So for a little while, I was a beach body coach. So I don't know if you
Oh,
know what that
okay.
is. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
that for like a little while. I didn't love being a beach body coach, to be honest with you. That's my own personal experience. For anybody listening who might be a beach body coach and you loved it, that is amazing for you, and I'm happy for you. It's great if it's for you. It wasn't for me. But I was doing that for a little while. So I did have like a few family and friends. I was posting on social media my workouts, but it wasn't like I was gaining any following. It was just for my family and friends. And so I did have a few family and friends be like, "Hey, what workouts are you doing? I want to do this with you." And it was like a few people here and there. Well, then eventually I was like, I want to do something more with this. I had never heard of health coaching, had no idea what it was. I was driving to my teaching job one day, and my mom was like, "Well, at work, we had this like program with a health coach. Maybe that might be something you want to do." And so I Googled it. And I was like, this actually sounds great. And so that's kind of the day that I decided that I wanted to become a health coach. And from there, I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And yeah, I would say I wasn't even halfway through the program yet. And I posted on my Instagram story. I was like, "Hey, I'm doing free coaching calls. Does anybody want one?" And I had, oh my gosh, I think it was like 17 people respond
Holy
and say,
cow,
I
it's
know. It
amazing.
was insane. I was blown away. My calendar immediately filled up. And I'll be honest, since then, I haven't not had a client. It's definitely because I think I spent so long showing people my life and my journey that people were like really willing to trust me. They were like, "I know who she used to be," because in the beginning it was mostly family and friends. "I know who she used to be. I know where she's coming from. I know what she's been doing to get here. Yeah, I'd love to learn from her and see how she got to where she is today." So yeah, that was kind of the start of my health coaching.
Amazing, amazing. Now, I know you are really like you have a lot of fun with sharing your meal prepping, and I think that's a big part of your health coaching. So, talk to me a little bit about that because I send out recipes, but a lot of my recipe mindset and meal prep creation comes more from like meal prep companies or how can you do this in a faster way where you don't have to be the one in the kitchen all the time. So, I want to hear your perspective on how, if you want to be the one doing it in the kitchen how how can you make that happen when we're all so busy?
I think for meal prepping to happen, we have to go back a couple of steps and start with meal planning. That is
Ah,
really the big thing that I think a lot of us miss is I every single week write down what are me and my husband going to be eating for the next week, and we take into consideration what's going on in the evenings. Are there any games we want to be going to, or anything like that going on in our life where I might need a meal that's already pre-done, or we might just need to eat leftovers on this night. And I make my meal plan according to my life, what's going on in my life. So it's not like blindly, like you said, if I were to give somebody a meal plan, I don't know what's going on in their life. So
such a good point.
right. So we make it according to our life, what's going on in our life. We sit down, me and my husband a while ago established Friday nights, we make our meal plan. And so we sit down at the table on Friday and I'm like, "Hey, what do you want to eat next week?" And it's not that dreaded question because we know that it's happening that night. And so
Mhm.
creating that routine with this is when we meal prep. And then on the weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, we'll go grocery shopping, get what we need to make the meal for that week. And then for meal prepping, I actually take the approach of instead of doing like batch cooking all on Sunday and having it for the rest of the week, I take the approach of cook once, eat twice. And so I might cook a meal, like for example, this week, I cooked twice and we had chicken parmesan with salads, and then we had taco salads also. So I cooked taco stuff on Monday. We had the leftovers of that on Wednesday. And then I cooked chicken parmesan on Tuesday. We had the leftovers of that last night on Thursday. And so that was our way of, I didn't have to cook on Wednesday and Thursday. And it makes life so much easier whenever I'm like, okay, we're just eating leftovers tonight. I can definitely do that because I think a lot of the problem is when it comes to healthy eating is like we lose energy and steam, especially by the end of the week. It's like, you know what, I do not feel like going home and cooking. I'm just going to hit the drive-through. But this is because that's easier. But this is ultimately easier. You've already cooked the meal. All you have to do is go home and warm it up. It saves you money. It saves you time of sitting in the drive-through. It saves you time of figuring out where are we going? What do we want to eat tonight? You know, it really ultimately does save you a lot. So that's my approach to meal prepping that has seemed to be just more realistic for day-to-day life.
Oh my God, I love it. And like cook once, eat twice. I just wrote that down because it is so overwhelming. And this was like back to my bodybuilding days. And one reason why I couldn't stick with a meal plan long term was, I mean, my entire Sunday was taken up by cooking food for the entire week. And you get 2 or 3 days into the week and you're like, I don't want that anymore. I had it 3 days in a row already.
Yes.
Like, and it's so, I mean, I don't know if we like as a society, we just we need variety, but we also need to keep it simple. And it's such a fine line of where can we meet in the middle of, you know, not being so repetitive, but also like having not spending an entire Sunday. Like Sunday should be a day of rest, right? Like how
Yeah.
are we actually using Sunday as a day of rest if we're meal prepping for the entire week? No.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, then a lot of food ends up going to waste because we're like, I don't want this. I've already eaten it so many times. But I think as a society, we try to just overcomplicate things that don't need to be complicated. Eating should not be complicated and stressful. It really shouldn't be. And we
Agreed.
try to think so hard about it. We're like, surely it has to be hard to eat healthy. It really doesn't have to be. It can be super simple to make one meal and then eat it again later in the week. You know, it really can be very simple if we allow it to be. That's almost like a mindset of like, this doesn't have to be complicated. It can be simple.
Exactly. It can be simple and it can taste really good. I don't know if you get this a lot, but I think a lot of people are afraid that like, oh, it's healthy, it's not going to be good. And I don't think that's the case either, but I don't think the right education is out there to go, how can it be simple and tasty at the same time?
Totally. And my family is like this. When I was first starting out with this, they'd be like thinking everything that I ate was made out of cauliflower. They'd be like, oh, is that made out of cauliflower? No, I'm eating normal foods. It's not all made out of cauliflower. But I think that was such a trend, especially in the time that I was getting started with this, is our rice and our pizza and everything else is made out of cauliflower, you know? So you're right. And my sister describes food as cardboard all the time. She's like, it tastes like cardboard. And that is like, sometimes I think we go into eating a healthy meal expecting it to taste bad, so then it does. You know, it's like if you are expecting something to taste horrible, it's just like with anything in life. If we're expecting the test to be really hard, it probably is going to be really hard. If we're expecting that, you know, tomorrow is going to be the worst day ever, it's probably going to be one of your worst days ever, you know? So
Oh my God, you're bringing it back to mindset.
always, I can't help it. It's just who I am.
It's part of you. I love it. I love it. Which I think brings us into the next part of our conversation, which you did an amazing podcast a few months ago on the difference between boundaries and restrictions when it comes to meals and snacks. So I would love for you to elaborate on that topic and how you approach it personally and with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about how there is a time and a place for us to have boundaries with the things that we're doing in our health journey, right? But I never want us to be restricted. When I'm talking about restriction, I'm talking about like not allowing yourself to have something. And then if you do have it, then you feel really guilty about it. You beat yourself up about it. Restriction comes from a place of having an unhealthy relationship with food. Boundaries are saying, no, am not going to drink soda first thing in the morning, right? Like that is a boundary that I have. And maybe if I want soda, I might have it later in the day, but it's not going to be the first thing that I have in the mornings. That's how I grew up, having first thing in the morning was soda. So,
Wow.
you know, that is definitely a boundary. And other boundaries that I really like to implement in my own life, the number one that really helped me get out of the binge eating and really helped me with my cravings that I was talking about earlier was not having sugary foods on an empty stomach, but instead having them after a meal or a snack that is well balanced. So have the protein, have the veggies, have the healthy fats, and then if you want a dessert, have it then. What I was doing before was I was having a whole bunch of sugar, like I mentioned, right after school, and I had an empty stomach. We eat lunch with third graders at like 11 a.m., and then it was 4 p.m. by the time that I was, you know, I was starting to get hungry, but I thought being hungry meant I was weak and that I was never going to lose weight. And so I was like, why am I hungry again? I ate lunch, you know, so then I would just start snacking on sugary foods, and that ended up spiking up my blood sugar. Instead, having it after a well-balanced meal or a snack keeps your blood sugar more stable so that you're not going to go on this blood sugar roller coaster and then end up having more intense cravings afterwards. So that's just a boundary with food. Restriction would be I'm never eating dessert ever again. Having a boundary with dessert is saying I can have dessert after a well-balanced meal or a snack. And so there's a huge difference. It's not even a fine line.
Absolutely.
It's a
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
difference in those two things. Is no longer demonizing these foods, just saying these foods can have a place in my life. I just have a boundary with these foods, and I know that having these at this particular time in this way is going to be better for me and allow me to feel better in the end.
Yeah, I love that. And it feels like it's not what you do, it's how you do it. You know, it's and I
Absolutely.
feel even when I'm thinking those words of like I'm restricted, I can't have that, like the feelings I get and the emotions that come up are like my heart rate starts going up and I'm like, I'm never going to be able to have this again. And like it creates these really odd feelings. But when it's a boundary, I'm like, oh, I'll have it later. Like it's not taken away. It's right there. Like it's
Yep.
right there. It's in my sight. It's in my line of vision. And just the feeling of the difference between those two words is massive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is, you know, we're headed into the beginning of the year whenever we're recording this. I don't know when it will be released live, but I'm sure it'll be around the beginning of the year. And with that, there is a lot of restriction that comes at the beginning of the year for so many people. Is this year I'm gonna be good and I'm gonna cut out all dessert, right? And that's our New Year's resolution. No more dessert. I'm sorry, but that's unrealistic and it's not going to happen. You've probably tried it before and you wouldn't have this resolution again if it had stuck. So let's stop resolving to do that and let's start finding those boundaries and finding ways to include those foods in a healthy way. So that is, I have a little bit of a tiff with New Year's resolutions just
I
because
love
I
it.
feel like they just, you know, they're not the healthiest thing in my opinion.
Yes, no, I agree. I'm like, if what you've been doing consistently hasn't been working, do something different. DSD, got to do something different. So, speaking
Love
of
that.
doing something different, tell us where, like, how we can learn about what you're doing with your group coaching program, what you have coming up. That way, if somebody wants to do something different for their New Year's resolution, they can check you out.
Oh, I would love that. Yes. So, like I said, I have a group coaching program, Seismic Shifts, and it's an 8-week group coaching program. The next round opens up in January. So, if you want to join that, you can put your name on the wait list. I will give you the link for the wait list so you can put it in the show notes for the episode, Danny. And
Perfect.
that would be a great way to learn more about what the program entails and make sure that you are listening and ready whenever it opens up. And then again, of course, there is the freebie that I told you that I would give you as well. Is a really good place to start because it gives you that education and lets you know the mindset shifts that are needed to begin making sustainable changes to your weight loss. It's specifically for weight loss. So yeah, I'm on all social media at Laura Be Healthy. There's a dot surrounding the B, Laura.B.healthy. And
Perfect.
you can find me at behealthyhabits.com as well.
Love it. I will put all the information in the show notes. Laura, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I know we'll talk again soon, and we'll be in person soon because I'm
Yay.
coming to Orlando.
Yay! So excited. Thank you, Danny.
You're welcome. Bye.
That's it for today's bite-sized insights. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a friend who has mentioned the topic of today's chat and help spread the word. Thank you for your ratings, reviews, and support. They mean the world to me, and they are what help me to continue creating this show. Until next time, I hope you enjoy your next bite.
If you are what you eat, then I only want to eat the good stuff.